Hello, this time we'll be looking at the Victorinox Champion. Unfortunately, this knife is discontinued, and I suspect this one is from around the 90s or early 2000s. Now, this has got an almost identical tool set to the Victorinox Handyman that I have here. It's basically the exact same, just a slight variation in tools, and both the Handyman and the Champion are a step down from Victorinox's flagship model, the Swiss Champ. Now, I haven't had a chance to clean this up yet, as I've got a lot of other tools that I've been cleaning up in the meantime, so the tools are quite stiff, but nonetheless, let's have a look. So to start off with, the main blade, just like all the other Swiss Army knives of course, a small pen blade which is very stiff on mine, as the previous owner probably doesn't even know what oil is. As I said, I gave it a little bit of oil before I filmed it. Unfortunately, my one has a bit of a chip which doesn't want to focus right there in the tip. I don't think I'm going to go to the effort to grind that out. I just don't see the point wasting all the other perfectly usable edge just to get it perfect. And we also have a metal file, which on mine is fairly heavily worn. It'll still work, but it won't bite as nicely. And I do notice, I think this one's a bit thinner than my other ones. So that's something I do need to compare at a later date. Let's see what's next. A wood saw. Now this one is fairly dull. This is the first dull one. I mean, it'll still cut, but not as quick. Now I am thinking I might do a video on sharpening these. If I can, I will investigate to see if this can be sharpened with a file, like traditional woodworking saws. So I'm hoping that I'll eventually do a video on that. I don't think there is any videos on YouTube about that, although if there is, I'd be interested in knowing. The fish scaler with ruler, both metric and imperial. A pair of scissors, some of the best in the world, which I argue. Now, if you notice, this one actually has a screw holding the scissors together, whereas newer knives, such as my Swiss Champ, does not have a screw, it's a rivet. So I could be mistaken, but I believe that's one way of identifying, or sorry, it's one method you can use to help date your knife. I mean, being able to take it apart will make it that little bit easier to sharpen, but I have no problem sharpening them just as is. At least the spring's still there. And this next layer of tools is where it differs from the Handyman. So it has a very stiff, in my case, Phillips screwdriver. And then on the opposite side, it's got a magnifying glass, and again I do believe this is a way to identify, or help date the age of the knife. If I once again refer to my Swiss Champ, it also has a magnifying glass, but as you can see it's completely clear. I think with the older one it's a frame with a separate lens, whereas I think the newer ones are just one piece. I might be mistaken about that though. And of course you've got your final layer, which is your openers. So you've got your tin opener there with a screwdriver. And your bottle opener with a screwdriver. Now this one has a 45-degree stop, or I should say a halfway stop even, whereas some of the older ones don't have that stop at all. So that, I believe, could potentially help date this model as well. And on the flip side, we have a corkscrew, which if you notice is fluted, which I believe is another thing you can use to identify the age, whereas the rest of them do not have a fluting on the corkscrew. We have a woodworking chisel, which I suspect is very dull. Yeah. Another screwdriver, not quite a fine one. And our final tool is one of my personal favourites, is your bradawl with a sewing eye. And of course you've got your tweezers, which I don't think I'll be using as this is second hand, and it's missing the toothpick, but second hand, so I'm not really too upset by that. Now, one other thing that I would like to point out is the keyring on this model is on the left, whereas on my Handyman it's on the right, and with my Swiss Champ it's on the right. In fact, most of the knives here it's on the right. So again, I might be mistaken, but I think that's something that could potentially help give you an idea of how old this is. Now, the reason I've got all these out is just for a quick comparison. So if you're really into Victorinox knives, you can kind of line them up and you can see the differences. So for example, this is the Huntsman and this is the Ranger. They're basically the exact same knife, although the Huntsman adds on a file and a chisel. And then your really it should be laid out like this, because these two are the same. They're just an upgrade from this, as this one adds pliers, whereas this one adds the magnifying glass and the screwdriver, and the Swiss Champ is an upgrade from that, as it has both the pliers and the magnifying glass and screwdriver. So at some point at a later date I will have a look through all of them once I've got the full lineup. I mean, before the Huntsman, I believe it's the Mountaineer and Climber, and before that is the Spartan, and then before that is just your single models where it's just a knife and a can opener. That's something for a later date. So I hope you found that interesting, and hopefully I shouldn't take too long to make any more knife videos, but I do have other non-knife, non-EDC videos planned, so please feel free to stick around for that. Right, well, thanks, and I'll see you later.